It was a Tuesday, or maybe a Thursday. Let's be honest, when you're on the welcoming side of 45, the days have a tendency to gently merge. You're cruising in life's middle lane, past the frantic exit ramps of your 20s, not yet seeing the rest stops of retirement. Your body makes sounds when you stand up that you don't remember programming, and you've officially reached the age where you get genuinely excited about a new laundry detergent that really tackles odors. For our hero, a man we'll call Gary, this particular blurry weekday found him in his command center, the home office, or as his wife Linda affectionately labeled it, the Museum of Abandoned Hobbies. The evidence was all around him. The guitar from his rock phase leaning in the corner, now just a very expensive clothes hanger, a partially assembled model ship, and on the desk, the true symbol of our times, a sleek new cordless phone next to the indestructible mustard yellow rotary phone he refused to get rid of, just in case. He was engaged in a classic midlife ritual, trying to remember which variation of his standard password he'd used for his internet bill pay. Was it fluffy 1987 exclamation mark or fluffy exclamation mark 1987? The stakes felt incredibly high. As he pondered, the landline rang. Ah, the landline, a relic. A tether to a simpler time. Gary remembered when that sound sparked joy, or at least curiosity. It could be your buddy Steve asking if you wanted to hit the driving range, or your Aunt Carol with a suspiciously detailed casserole recipe. But that era had passed, like parachute pants and the certainty that you'd never need glasses. Now the ring was a siren song for trouble, a digital prospector panning for gold in the river of your personal information. Gary, a mix of resignation and mild intrigue. All right, let's see what fresh hell this is. Good morning. This is Mike calling from the Windows Technical Security Department. We are receiving critical alerts from your computer. A severe Trojan virus is actively stealing your data and banking information. Do not disconnect, sir. We are here to help you. Gary leaned back. The ergonomic chair groaned in sympathy. He looked past his monitor, currently displaying a hard-fought game of Minesweeper, and out the window at his lawn. One patch was suspiciously greener than the rest. The summer of '99 fertilizer experiment. Some projects, like some phone calls, have long-lasting consequences. A thought occurred to him, not about viruses or data, but about performance, about intent. He just spent last weekend watching a marathon of Columbo reruns. The genius wasn't in the technology, it was in the conversation, the just one more thing. He decided to conduct an experiment of his own. Gary, to the scammer, voice deliberately calm, even friendly. A Trojan, you say, like the horse or the condom. It's always confusing. But Mike, before we get into the nitty-gritty of my digital demise, I need to clarify something for my records. It's a compliance issue. The scammer, thrown off by the calm, but sticking to script, Compliance? Yes, sir, of course. What do you need? Gary, innocently, as if reading from a form, right, for legal and archival purposes, is this call being recorded for quality assurance and training purposes, or is it being recorded strictly for comedy purposes later? I just need to know which box to check. In a crowded, fluorescent-lit room, thousands of miles away, Mike froze. His script, a dense block of text on his screen, had no answer for this. He'd been cursed at, cried to, even preached to, but he had never been categorized. Was this a tech support call or an audition for an open mic night? The existential weight of the question hung in the satellite delay. This is not a comedy call, sir. This is a serious security breach. Your social security number, your credit cards, your family photos are all at risk. Family photos? Now you've hit a nerve, Mike. See, I just spent last month transferring all our old photos from actual albums to the cloud, whatever that is. It's in Nebraska, I'm told. Took me weeks. Saw pictures of me with hair, a troubling, beautiful bygone era. So if a virus eats those, I will be bereft. But I still need that classification for my records. Training or comedy? If it's for training, I hope I'm providing a good lesson. If it's for comedy, I'd like to think my timing is decent. I did some community theater, The Odd Couple, 1994. I was Speed. Gary was warming up. This was more stimulating than his Sudoku app. He pictured Mike, a young man, probably half his age, utterly bewildered by references to physical photo albums and Neil Simon plays. Gary decided to go for the full nostalgia trip. Sir, the virus is spreading. I need you to go to your computer and press the Windows key and R together. The Windows key. Is that the one with the little flag? You know, that always seemed vaguely imperialistic to me. My first computer had a key that said Enter, and it meant it. It had authority. Now, Mike, while I'm looking for this flag key, which, between us, could use a better design, let me ask you, does this virus have anything to do with the fact that my computer still makes the dial-up modem sound when it starts up? I downloaded it for the nostalgia. It terrifies my kids. It's a beautiful sound, the sound of hope, and getting disconnected because someone picked up the phone. For the next 10 minutes, Gary expertly piloted the conversation like a captain navigating a ship through a fog of bafflement. He connected the scam's urgency to the time his '93 Ford Taurus overheated on the highway, a crisis that also required immediate, expensive intervention from a specialist. He mused on whether the internet had a physical size and if the virus was making it heavy. He asked if Windows Technical Security was related to the company that made the defective windows in his sunroom that rattled when the train went by. He segued into a brief review of the film The Net with Sandra Bullock. Now that, he told Mike, was a realistic portrayal of tech fear. They used floppy disks. You could hold the danger in your hand. Scammer, the professional cheer now fully drained, replaced by a flat, tired confusion. Sir, please, the Windows key. It is vital. Gary, feigning sudden technical insight. Oh, is this about that blue screen of death I got last week? That's been happening since Windows 95, Mike. It's a rite of passage, like your first gray hair or finding a new pain in a place you didn't know could have pain. I didn't panic then. I'm not panicking now, but your concern is touching. Really. Do you get performance reviews based on how much panic you generate? And then Gary heard it, a long, slow exhale on the other end of the line. It wasn't a sound of anger. It was the sound of a man whose will was being eroded not by confrontation, but by a relentless, friendly onslaught of irrelevance. It was the sigh of someone being buried in an avalanche of anecdotal evidence about a life wholly unfamiliar to him. Gary, switching tones, his voice becoming conspiratorial, almost avuncular. Look, Mike, can I call you Mike? You sound like a nice kid. How's your day really going? You doing okay? These scripts they make you read, they can't be fun. You know what I did today that was actually fun? I fixed the drawer on the toaster oven, had to MacGyver a paperclip and a bit of chewing gum, felt like a genius for a solid hour. That's a real win. Are you having any real wins today, Mike? Or is it just this? The silence was profound. It was no longer just a paused script. It was a human connection, however bizarre, flickering to life in the most unlikely of places. Gary pictured a young man, far from home, sitting in a sea of cubicles, suddenly being asked not for his credit card, but for his well-being. Then, a soft, almost apologetic click. The line went dead. Gary placed the receiver back in its cradle. He looked around his museum of abandoned hobbies. The guitar, the model ship, the stack of National Geographics from the 90s. For a brief, glorious 22 minutes and 17 seconds, he hadn't abandoned a hobby. He had perfected one. The ancient, noble art of conversational jujitsu. He hadn't just defeated a scammer. He had befriended him into surrender. He had weaponized the minutiae of his life, the lost arts of physical media, the memories of outdated software, the profound satisfaction of a well-fixed appliance, and found it was an impenetrable shield. He hadn't stopped the machinery of global fraud. They'd call tomorrow, probably about his car warranty. But today, he'd done something more important. He'd reclaimed a piece of his time, his sanity, and his narrative. He turned a predatory transaction into a bewilderingly human interaction. And in a world that often makes men his age feel invisible, obsolete, or just plain confused by the settings on their new TV, that felt like a towering victory. It was a victory you couldn't deposit in the bank, but you could savor it. You could savor it like the last good cough drop in the pack, like finding a pair of socks that actually match, like the perfect silence in the house after you finally figure out how to stop the refrigerator door from beeping. So, the next time the phone rings with an offer that's too good to be true or a threat that feels oddly generic, remember Gary. You don't need to be a cybersecurity expert. You just need to be you. Your gloriously, specifically, inconveniently experienced self. Your memory is a vault no hacker can crack. Your stories are firewalls they cannot breach. Your sheer, accumulated, mundane wisdom about drip coffee makers and the proper way to seal an envelope is your greatest antivirus software. Confuse them with context, baffle them with benevolence, overwhelm them with the unscriptable, ungoogleable details of a life truly lived, a life that remembers not just passwords, but payphones, not just updates, but upgrade paths that led to quiet, beautiful dead ends. They have a script, but you've got an epic written in grocery lists, archived in shoeboxes of photos, and scored by the hum of a dial-up modem that lives on in your heart.